こんにちは。日本語コーチのチェロ先生です。On this video, we will be looking at questions 5, 6, 7, and 8 of the Chokai listening test. Okay, if you haven't seen the previous video where I explained questions 1, 2, 3, and 4, I will leave the card right here. And also you can watch the full video of the full test, the Chokai part, the listening part. That also the card is going to be right here. Okay, but on this video, let's then look at the script and the explanation of questions 5, 6, 7, 8 of Mondai Ichi. So let's get into it. Hi, so we're gonna do the listening first and then looking at the script and the explanation. But remember, before you listen, we should be able to look at the pictures. Try to look at the pictures and see what they have in common, what are the differences. So let's listen to it first.
5番
レストランで店の人と男の人が話しています。男の人はこれから何をしますか？いらっしゃいませ。
食事のメニューはありますか？
すみません。2時からコーヒータイムになります。
飲み物だけ？
はい、ケーキはございますが。
そう。じゃあ、またにします。
男の人はこれから何をしますか？
Hi, so which one would you choose? Picture number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4? Let's have a look at the script and explanation and actually check your answer. So first of all, the scenario explanation was レストランで店の人と男の人が話しています。Right? So it's very important that you know, who are the people talking, right? The scenario. So レストランで, so it takes place at the restaurant. And then you have mise no hito is always the person that works at that store, regardless if it's a restaurant or a shop, a gift shop or whatever it is. So mise no hito. So we have the mise no hito, the person who works at the store, or in this case at the restaurant, and could be a man and a woman, or a woman, right? And in this case, a man, 男の人が話しています。話しています、talking, right? And then the important question is, 男の人はこれから何をしますか？男の人は the man これから from now after the conversation is over 何をしますか？ What will he do? Right? Remember that in Japanese the form masu means the present but also the future, right? 勉強します meaning I study now or I will study. Okay, so in this case, これから何をしますか? So what will he do? Will I do? Will you do from now? Okay, talking about the future. So then let's look into the conversation. So A, we have the person from the restaurant, which in this case is a woman, right? So the woman says, いらっしゃいませ. いらっしゃいませ. So いらっしゃいませ again is a wording that you will hear a lot in Japan. Everywhere you go is a greeting that we use at a store, at a restaurant, at any venue where you are expecting your customer, your guests. Okay, so いらっしゃいませ, which in this case we could translate as welcome, right? And then the man says, 食事のメニューはありますか? So 食事 means meal, right? And menu is menu. Arimasu is the verb aru, to have. So in this case, he's asking, do you have the menu for the food, right? Can I see it? And then the woman says, mise no hito says, sumimasen. I'm sorry, but 2時からコーヒータイムになります. Right? So from 2 o'clock, 2時から, which obviously is the 2 p.m., right? 2時からコーヒータイム. Kohi means coffee. Time comes from time, right? Time になります. So here you can also memorize nani nani ni naru means to become, right? So for example, gakusei ni naru, kokousei ni naru, that to become a high school student, or daigakusei ni naru, to become a university student, yoru ni naru, to become evening, right? But in this case, kohi taimu ni naru, right? To become the time of the coffee time, which in a restaurant means basically that they stop serving like food, like lunch. They close the kitchen and then they have just basically drinks and perhaps, you know, something that is already made, but there is nobody working in the kitchen. Then the man says, nomimono dake? Nomimono dake. Nomimono means beverage, right? So drinks. Dake means only. So it's like, oh, so you have only drinks now? You're serving only drinks? And as you can see here, this ka, there's no polite language, right? Because he's the customer, he's the guest, so he doesn't need to use polite Japanese technically. And then the person from the store, Mr. Nohito, the restaurant says, Hai, keiki wa gozaimasu ga, right? Hai, keiki wa gozaimasu ga. Yes, so yes meaning yes, it's only drinks. But, then ga means but. Keiki wa gozaimasu. Gozaimasu is a very polite way of saying arimasu. So keiki wa arimasu. We have cake, right? We serve cake. But, right? So keiki wa gozaimasu ga, meaning that all we have is cake. It's not really food, but if you want, you know, that's the thing that we have besides drinks. And then the man says, so, like, oh, okay, so let me think about it. And then ja, mata ni shimasu, right? So after thinking a little bit, so, okay, ja, well, mata ni shimasu. Mata means, you know, it's kind of hard to translate here. Mata ni shimasu in this case means I'll come another time, you know, I'll try another time, right? Mata ni shimasu. Shimasu is the verb suru, so you could translate as like I will do it later, but in this case, you know, it would be more like I will come later, right? Mata kimasu, you could say mata kimasu, but mata nishimasu is the shimasu would be more like a shokuji time, right? To have a meal there. So that situation, o suru koto. Okay, so mata nishimasu, that's why it's a little bit more natural than say mata kimasu, you know. But yeah, that means then that mata nishimasu, so he will come another time. So back to the question, which is, otoko no hito wa kore kara nani o shimasu ka? Right? So the answer is number 2, right? Which is he's leaving the venue. He's leaving the restaurant, right? I hope you chose number 2. If you chose number 1, it was probably because you heard the word cake, right? And so that's him, the guest eating, the customer eating a cake. Number 3, he's eating a meal, which we don't know. And then number 4, he's drinking a coffee, right? So it's kind of tricky because again, they will put words in the conversation that are in the pictures, right? But it's very important that you catch that what a part of the conversation actually translates into, which in this case, mata nishimasu translates into I will come another time, I'm leaving, I'm not having coffee nor cake. Okay?
5番、
レストランで店の人と男の人が話しています。男の人はこれから何をしますか？いらっしゃいませ。
食事のメニューはありますか？
すみません。2時からコーヒータイムになります。
飲み物だけ？
はい。ケーキはございますが。
そう。じゃあ、またにします。
男の人はこれから何をしますか？
Hi, so let's move on to the next one. Hi, question number 6. Let's have a look at the pictures, okay? And let's listen to the conversation first.
6番、
先生が話しています。来週、学生はどうしますか？前に話したと思いますが、来週のこの時間、私は会議があるので来られません。で、代わりに山田先生が来てくれることになったので、授業はいつも通りです。これからプリントを配りますから、うちでやってきてください。
先生、それ宿題ですか？
はい、そうです。来週、学生はどうしますか？
はい。So let's listen. First, the scenario was 先生が話しています。Sensei, the teacher, 話しています is talking, right? So we know here that the teacher is talking. And then the question was 来週学生はどうしますか？ Next week, 来週学生 the student どうしますか？ What will they do? Right? So しますか in this case again we're talking about the future. So what are the students or the student do next week? So that's what you have to keep in mind before you start listening to the conversation. Okay? Which in this case is actually more like a one person. We have the person be the student just saying one phrase, which is irrelevant to the information. So if you pay attention actually to the first, like speech, you should be able to choose the correct answer, right? So let's have a look. First, the teacher in this case is a woman. She says, 前に話したと思いますが、来週のこの時間。So 前に before 話した I talked or I said と思いますが I think, right? So I think I told you guys before next week 来週のこの時間 at this time, right? So at this time and この時間 in this case is not only at this time talking about time, but also is talking about 授業, which is the class time, right? So we can think perhaps that they are at the university where you have a certain class that starts from, let's say 2 to 3, right? So when the teacher says この来週のこの時間 meaning, next week's this class, on our next week, that what's going to happen is that 私は会議があるので来られません。I will have a meeting. 会議はミーティングですね。meeting. So があるので I will have so ので来られません。I cannot come. 来られる is the form that says I will be able to the verb, right? Which in this case is kuru, the verb kuru, to come. So korareru is I can come, I'm able to come. And this is the negative form of the korareru, which is koraremasen, meaning that I will not be able to come, right? So the teacher is saying, 前に話したと思いますが、来週のこの時間、私は会議があるので来られません。Next week, I think I told you guys already, next week I will have a meeting during this class, so I won't make it. That's the translation. And then she moves on saying de. In Japanese, de is kind of a short version of no de or desu kara, right? So de kawari ni. Kawarini is like instead of, right? But in this case, it's like watashi no kawarini, ne? Instead of me, other teacher will come, right? Which is Yamada Sensei. But in Japanese, we tend to omit the subject, right? So watashi no kawarini, there's no need to put watashi no. So it's just kawarini instead of me. Yamada Sensei ga kite kureru, will come, okay? Now, if you don't know yet, kite kureru is a te kureru form. Basically, is kind of translates as like we'll do the favor of. Okay, in this case, the Yamada Sensei It's not his job to teach this class, but he will do the favor of come and teach you guys instead of me. Kite kuremasu. So instead of this kite kureru, it has this meaning of, do the effort, the favor of doing something. Ne? For example, can you teach me Japanese? Ne? So let's say for example, you're not my teacher, not getting paid to do so, but would you do the favor of doing that for me? So instead of just saying 教えてください, I would say 教えてくれますか? 教えてくれる? Right? So that's the nuance that you have inside of the てくれる. Okay? Anyway, so 山田先生が来てくれることになったので、So one more grammar point that I want to teach you guys here is something ことになった, right? Which is usually the jishoke, the dictionary form, ことになった. So naru is the verb to become, right? Or to be, right? Koto is like a matter or something that will happen, right? So nani nani koto ni natta is like this will happen. It's been established that something is gonna happen, right? Koto ni natta. So in this case again, Yamada Sensei, Mr. Yamada will come to teach this class instead of me. This has been confirmed. So you could even get this feeling of it has been confirmed from the koto ni natta. Okay? And then she carries on saying, 授業はいつも通りです. So, 授業 means the class, this class. いつも通りです. Now, this is the point. If you are able to get いつも通りです, 授業はいつも通りです, then you should be already able to get the right picture. Obviously, you have to keep paying attention to see what else they're going to say, right? Because it can get really sneaky and they change things at the end of the listening. But this is the main part of the dialogue, I would say, that it gives away the answer. So 授業 is the class. いつも通り. いつも means always. 通り comes from 通り, right? Which means basically the way, right? So いつも通り means is the same way as it always is, right? And so meaning that the class will happen as usual. That would be the translation here, okay? 授業はいつも通りです. Meaning that it's not going to be a holiday. You guys need to come and attend the class, right? So that being said, again, you should be able to compare the pictures and choose the right one. But let's keep looking at it. Then she changes the subject, kind of, right? She makes a pause and she says, これからプリントを配りますから. So for now, I will hand in purinto. Purinto is like basically a sheet or a handout, right? That could be an exercise or something. And then she says, うちでやってきてください. So please do it at home, right? うち, home, right? You also might know the word ie, right? Which is home, house. But we use uchi, I would say perhaps even more than ie. Ie becomes more the physical house, like ie. Like when you say, oh, your house is beautiful, right? Ie wa kirei desu ne. So the house, the physical thing. But when you say uchi, it has a feeling more than just the physical house, but also where you live, where you sleep, where you eat, so that's kind of some nuance that we have in the word uchi. So uchi de yatte kite kudasai, right? Please do it at home. Okay, meaning that is a homework, right? But obviously this student wants to double check that, so he says, sensei, それ宿題ですか? Is that a homework, right? And then she says, はい、そうです. Yes, that's correct, right? Yeah, exactly. Hi, so that being said, the answer is picture number 1, right? So 授業はいつも通りです, meaning that next week both, the students will be in the classroom being taught by another teacher, right? Yamada Sensei. So picture number 2 is more like the homework part, which again can be tricky, but that's not what's going to happen next week, right? And picture number 4 is like they're in the cafeteria eating, so not really. And picture number 3 is, it could be a little bit tricky. You might have been, in doubt between number 1 and number 3 because it looked like they are studying, but there's no presence of a teacher, right? So although it looks like a classroom, it's not. But again, you might have chosen that, and if you did, fair enough, I would say. But I would say as a deciding factor is the teacher. Plus, this picture, if you look into it, the classrooms, well, if you haven't been to Japan, probably you don't know because in your country might be different. But this is most likely, from my experience in Japan, is a library, okay? Because you can see that these two kids are sitting together. But if you look at the table behind them, it has 4 seats, and there are very small and unclear, but there are some like shelves, bookshelves, right? So that, in my opinion, is a library, right? So that's why the right answer then is number 1, right? So the kids looking actually at a blackboard, with a whiteboard with somebody teaching them something. Okay?
6番、
先生が話しています。来週、学生はどうしますか？前に話したと思いますが、来週のこの時間、私は会議があるので来られません。で、代わりに山田先生が来てくれることになったので、授業はいつも通りです。これからプリントを配りますから、うちでやってきてください。
先生、それ宿題ですか？
はい、そうです。来週、学生はどうしますか？
So let's move on to our next question. はい、じゃあ、please look at the pictures, scan it, and let's listen to the dialogue first.
7番、
男の人と女の人が携帯電話で話しています。女の人はこれから何をしますか？
もしもし、田中さん？今暇？
ええ、もう授業はないし、帰ろうと思ってたところ。
テニスしませんか？
テニス？いいけど、私、あまり上手じゃないわよ。
あ、大丈夫です。コート取ったのに来られなくなった人が多くて困ってるんですよ。
そう。じゃあすぐ行くわね。女の人はこれから何をしますか？
はい、so let's look at the script. So first, the scenario was 男の人と女の人が携帯電話で話しています。Right? So 男の人、man, 女の人、woman, 携帯、if you don't know 携帯, but you know 電話, then that's fine, right? 電話で話している is talking over the phone. 携帯 is a cell phone, right? 携帯, which also means basically it's like a portable phone. That's the meaning of 携帯. Anyway, then the important question was 女の人はこれから何をしますか? What will the woman do from now? これから. Again, remember, every time it says これから, we're talking about as soon as this conversation is over, what will the person do, right? So there's a man and a woman talking. As soon as they finish, they are talking over the phone. So basically, as soon as they hang up, what will the woman do? So person A, who is the man, right? He is calling the woman and he says, Moshi moshi, Tanaka-san, ima, hima, right? So moshi moshi is basically the way in Japanese to say hello, right? Over the phone. We just use this over the phone, okay? Moshi moshi. Tanaka-san is the name of the woman. Ima, hima, right? So as it's funny because you see Tanaka-san, he's using the last name, meaning that he's not completely what's the word? He's not completely like friends, exactly best friends with her yet, right? Because he's calling her by the last name. In Japan, it's very common that when you use san towards somebody, is because they are perhaps older than you, or like you're not very close to them yet. However, because he says ima hima, like meaning that it's not hima desu ka, right? So this implies, for example, I don't know, but for example, this could be a situation where they are exactly the same age, meaning that they don't need to really be using a polite language with each other, right? Hima desu ka? But let's say they just met, like it's been a couple days only that they met each other. So it's still that kind of, not enough time to call each other by their first name or Chang and Kun. But let's move on. So basically he's saying, hey, Tanaka, are you free now? Ima, hima, like, are you free? Hima is basically not occupied, right? Ima is now. So are you free now? And then she says, eh, So remember that is also a casual way of saying hi, right? もう授業はないし、授業 is class, right? So I believe they are both university students, because that means in high school pretty much everybody has the same classes, but in university usually we have different classes, right? And some people finish earlier than others. So when she's saying like, oh, 授業はもうないし、もう授業はないし, meaning that she finished all her classes for the day. And then 帰ろうと思っていたところ. So 帰ろう is come from the verb 帰る, which is to go home, right? 帰る. The 帰ろう is like, okay, I'm going home. と思う is like, I'm thinking of going home. And then いたところ. So we have a lot of grammar points here. 何々ね、思っていたところ is like, I was thinking at this very moment about doing blah blah blah. So in this case, it's basically to say, oh, I was just thinking about leaving, going home, because I don't have any lessons left for the day, right? もう授業はないし、帰ろうと思っていたところ. So I'm exactly, like, should I stay or should I go kind of moment. And then the man says, テニスしませんか? So would you like to play tennis? And then she says, テニス? Like, oh, tennis? A little bit surprised, right? And she says, いいけど, well, that's fine, but, right? けど is also でも, but, 私, me, あまり上手じゃないわよ, meaning that, but I'm not very good at it. I'm not very good at it. So, じゃない, じゃありません is a casual way of saying じゃありません, right? わよ, usually you just say じゃありませんよ or じゃないよ. This わよ here is, I would say, is more like, a feminine thing that usually girls would say, wayo, like, oh, but well, I'm not very good at it. And then the man says, 大丈夫ですね. 大丈夫 here I would translate as don't worry, or like, that's not a problem, that you're not good, because コートを取ったのに来られなくなった人が多くて. So コート is the court, right? The tennis court. を取るというのは, 取る is to grab something, but in this case basically means to reserve, right? So in Japan, they have a lot of courts that you can rent actually, or even if it's a university, you can borrow it for free, but you still need to do the reservation, yoyaku, right? So toru here means that you have this reserved, right, for you. And usually you put how many people are attending and everything, right, in order to play. But in this case, it's saying コートを取ったのに, noni here is like but, right? However, 来られなく, so one more time, I think we did in the last one, right? 来られる is to be able to come. So in this case, it's 来られない, so not be able to come. なった人, people that became, right? So again, two grammar points here that might confuse you, but it's 来られない, not able to come. なった人, so people that became the people that cannot come. That would be the translation here. But obviously natural English would be there's a lot of people that couldn't come, that cannot make it, right? So, その来られなくなった人が多い、ね、多くて。Basically, oi means a lot, right? So there's a lot of people that cannot make it. And why is okute and not oi? It's just because the te here in the adjective is to connect to what is coming next, which is 困っているんだよ。ね、困っているんですよ. So I am in trouble. Like, like basically imagine you reserve a court and you don't have enough people to play the matches, right? So that's the komaru reason. ね、困っている is I'm in trouble, like, I'm basically desperate to find people to play because otherwise it's not really gonna work. 大丈夫ですよ. Don't worry if you don't play very well. コートを取ったのに来られなくなった人が多くて困ってるんですよ。ね、I'm just in trouble because I rented, I borrowed this court, I reserved this court, but now a lot of people cannot make it, so I need, people to come. So, and then she says, じゃあすぐ行くわね。行くわね. Yeah, I don't say わね, so that's why for me it's hard to say 行くね, I would say. But again, basically she says, so the so here basically is like, oh, okay, I get it, like meaning what he explained about, he just needs people, right, to come. Like, well, in that case, じゃあ, in that case, I'll be there. すぐ, like right away, right now. 行く, すぐ行くわね。すぐ行くわね。女の人はこれから何をしますか? What will the woman do from now? Right? As soon as she hung up, is that she's gonna go and play tennis. Right? So the answer is number 3. All right? And before we move to the next question, just would like to point out something very interesting about komatteiru desu ne. So in here, the last phrase of the guy, when he says komatteiru desu yo, I'm in trouble. So I just wanted to point out to you, I love kanjis. I think kanjis, the characters, they make the Japanese language so rich, all right? And I know that, usually for N5 materials, people don't use kanji. They have a lot of hiragana. But as you can see, my teaching style is actually that I have the kanjis, and then I just put the furigana in romaji, so you're actually able to use. But my point here is to actually get you guys used to the kanjis, because it's so important. It's actually easier to read. Like if I have a sentence all written in hiragana, it's really hard for my brain to actually, read it, because you don't know when it starts and when a word ends. And I want to point out that komatteiru, as we know, the kanjis, they have a relation. Well, not all of them, but they basically are supposed to be written from an idea of what it means, right? Which again, that's why it's rich, because it has meaning in the little, character. And the kanji for komatteiru, if you have a quick look with me here, what is it? Is the character of ki, which is the character of tree, right? The tree, and the character of perhaps kuchi, right? Which is mouth. But in this case, I wouldn't really focus on the mouth meaning. But the idea here is that imagine that the kuchi, that the box is actually literally a box, right? So you have a tree growing into inside a confined space with a ceiling, with a roof, meaning that tree, as you can look here, it doesn't have space to grow anymore, right? So the tree's in trouble, isn't it? Perhaps the cover is blocking the light, so it's not gonna get any light. It's gonna die. So that's why komatteiru is a little tree, in a cage. That's why it means komaru.
7番。
男の人と女の人が携帯電話で話しています。女の人はこれから何をしますか？
もしもし、田中さん？今暇？
ええ、もう授業はないし、帰ろうと思ってたところ。
テニスしませんか？
テニス？いいけど、私、あまり上手じゃないわよ。
大丈夫です。コート取ったのに来られなくなった人が多くて困ってるんですよ。
そう。じゃあすぐ行くわね。 女の人はこれから何をしますか？
Hachibam, let's listen to number 8. Please pay attention to the scenario and the question that you need to keep in mind before you listen. So let's go.
8番、
男の人と女の人が話しています。明日、どこで会いますか？明日、どこで会いましょうか？
駅の前の喫茶店、わかりますか？
駅の前、
はい。駅の前にホテルがありますよね。その隣に喫茶店があります。そこで3時に会いましょう。ホテルの中の喫茶店もいいですが、ちょっと高いですから。
はい、わかりました。じゃあ3時に。明日、どこで会いますか？
はい。じゃあ、1、2、3、4. Which number would you choose for the answer? So let's have a look at the script, right? First, the scenario was 男の人と女の人が話しています。Very simple one, right? So just basically a man, a woman are talking. 男の人と女の人が話しています。Now the important question was 明日どこで会いますか？明日どこで会いますか？ Tomorrow, 明日どこ where で right? 会いますか？会います comes from the verb 会う which means to meet, right? So where are they meeting up tomorrow, right? Where are they meeting up tomorrow? 明日どこで会いますか？ And then, you have basically the location, right? So it's 4 options. Where is the location that they are meeting up? So this is kind of an easy picture to scan. And then the 2 places here is hoteru, as you can see, which is a hotel. And the kanji here is kanji for eki, right, which is a station, which is N5 Inugo kanji. So that's why it's written in kanji, okay? Anyway, let's go into the dialogue. First of all, we have 明日どこで会いましょうか? Where are we meeting tomorrow? 会いましょうか is a polite way of saying, right? 会おうか right? 会いましょうか。明日どこで会いましょうか? Where are we meeting tomorrow? And then the man says, 駅の前の喫茶店わかりますか? So do you know わかりますか? The 喫茶店. Yeah. Do you know the 喫茶店, the coffee place? In front of the station. 駅の前。駅の前は in front of. Okay? And then the woman says, 駅の前? Like in front of the station, meaning that perhaps she's just thinking in her mind, right? And then the man says, はい。駅の前にホテルがありますよね。So he's giving her like, a step-by-step image, right? はい。So yes. In front of the station, 駅の前にホテルがありますよね。There is a hotel, right? So he's going with her, right? There is a hotel in front of the station, correct? And then he carries on. その隣に and on that side. So what side? So we're still talking about the hotel. ホテルの隣に This is very important, okay? その隣に Sono here is pointing at the hotel, okay? It's talking about the hotel. So ホテルの隣にその隣に喫茶店があります。There is a 喫茶店 next to the hotel. Okay, so this is the tricky part that might make you, get the wrong answer. But it's important for you to know that その隣に means ホテルの隣に. All right, and by that you should get the right answer already. But if you carry on, then it says そこで3時に会いましょう. So そこで meaning at that place, right? At the 喫茶店. Which is next to the hotel. 3時に会いましょう. Let's meet up at 3 o'clock. Okay? Again, 3 a.m. people don't meet up, so we're talking about afternoon 3 o'clock. 3時に会いましょう。ホテルの中の喫茶店もいいですが、 So E, this guy is like, E is like, oh, it's good too, right? So he's saying the hotel no naka, inside the hotel, there is another kisaten, right? So hotel no naka no kisaten mo, no? So the cafe inside the hotel is also good. Mo is also good. So in comparison to the kisaten where they're meeting up, there is a kisaten inside the hotel that is also great. But ga, right? The ga here is like but, however, ちょっと高いですから。It's a little bit too expensive. It's a little bit too pricey. So that's why they are meeting up in the one next to the hotel. So you see, this is a very tricky thing because if you didn't catch up the sono tonari ni ne, you might think that then they are meeting up in the kisaten that is inside the hotel, which in the picture would be number one, right? So that is just to confuse you, basically. And then asan is and then the woman says, はい、わかりました。じゃあ、3時に. So she says, okay, then I got it. わかりました。So, じゃあ、3時に, I'll see you at 3. Basically, that's the translation. So the right answer was number 2, right? その隣に喫茶店があります. So they are meeting up at the 喫茶店 next to the hotel. All right, a little bit tricky, but I hope you got it.
8番、
男の人と女の人が話しています。明日、どこで会いますか？明日、どこで会いましょうか？
駅の前の喫茶店、わかりますか？
駅の前。
はい。駅の前にホテルがありますよね。その隣に喫茶店があります。そこで3時に会いましょう。ホテルの中の喫茶店もいいですが、ちょっと高いですから。
はい、わかりました。じゃあ3時に。明日、どこで会いますか？
はい。And that's the end of this lesson. Okay, お疲れ様でした。We did only 3, but with my explanation, it is quite long already. So I will do the next questions in our next video. Alright, so this was the end of Mondai Ichi. So on my next video, we will be doing the Mondai Ni, questions 1, 2, and 3, plus the Rei, right, which is the example. So I'll see you on our next video. Okay, if you want to check out the video of the previous questions, script and explanation, I'll leave it here, and also I will leave the total complete listening test in case you want to check that out as well. Okay, それではまた。バイバイ。